This is Dave, the guru, and another tutorial using Gamesalad. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the modulus to create a simple switch in Gamesalad. Now you're going to see I have a single actor on the screen and it starts out default as yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and touch it, and it's going to turn to white and stay there because I actually have code in there that's telling it to change the color during a certain condition. And when I touch it again, it changes back, and it'll just keep changing back and forth as I touch it. This is a handy little bit of code for buttons and all kinds of different things that you want to do where there are just on-off conditions in your code. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how I did this. And let's just delete this actor off the scene, get rid of it. And let's just go ahead and we're going to make a new actor. And we'll go into it. And one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to come over and make a self attribute. Now you can do this with a game level attribute as well, but since this code is just going to be related to this actor itself, and I'm not going to apply this code globally across my game, I'm just going to make a self attribute, which is really the best way to make self attributes. That way the game level stuff is constantly scanned by the code. So anytime you can use a actor's self attribute, it really constricts that code to only when that actor is present on a scene and really slims out your game overall in its performance. So with this self attribute, I'm just going to call it switch. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up and we're going to create a rule, and we'll call this rule switch. And then we're going to go and just use a simple when touch is pressed. Now we're going to come down and we're going to grab a change attribute. And so what we're going to say is when self switch, and then we're going to come over and we're going to grab the modulo function, MOD, and we're going to backspace to the first open quote or the first open bar. And we're going to add another one because we're going to do a math function in here. So when we use open and close quotes, when we do math, we need to make sure that we close that area so we isolate that individual math function that we're going to do. And the modulus also requires us to have this first quote, so we need to close off the whole thing. So we're doing expressions. So we're going to go when self switch, and then we're going to do +1, and then we're going to close this expression with a close quote. So now see we have the second open bracket, and this last close bracket isolates this math equation that we're doing. And basically what the modulo function does is it gives you the remainder of anything you divide by. So let's say we divided 3 by 9. What we would be left with is 0 because 3 goes equally into 9 3 times. Now if we did 3 divided by 10, then we would end up with 1 because we have something left over. This is how the modulo function works. So we're going to use this to our advantage to get certain conditions of either a 1 or a 0 in our code. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a comma, and then we're going to go ahead and put what we're going to divide by. So we're going to, in this case, we're going to use 2 because it's just a simple switch. And then we want to close up the expression. So now we have the math function in here isolated with brackets, and then we have the overall expression isolated with brackets. And so what this little math function is going to do is it's going to leave us with a remainder of either 1 or 0 that we can track in this self-switch attribute. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to make one more rule, and we're going to call this on-off. I'll just call it on-off for ease of terms. And then what we're going to say is when attribute self-switch equals 1, we want it to do something. So just for this example, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to change the color of the actor. So we're going to go ahead over into the color bar, and you can see that we have an RGB standard here, and these three aspects control, based on what these numbers are, control the color of an actor. So we're going to change attribute self color. We'll just do the blue. So you'll see, watch, when I change this over here, I'm going to switch it, just toggle it between 1 and 0. So when it's 1, 1, 1, it's white, and when we have 1, 1, 1, 0, it's going to turn to yellow. So we can go ahead and we can start that back off at 1. So we're going to go ahead, and when it's 1, we're going to go ahead and change it to 1. And then we're going to go ahead and switch it back to 0. So this is going to toggle this back and forth because we're using the otherwise section here, which means when self switch doesn't equal 1 or it equals 0, it's going to go to this change attribute. If it equals 1, it'll do this change attribute. So let's go ahead back, and let's go ahead and drag our actor on the scene. And we're going to see it changes to yellow because right now it's 0. So when we touch it, it's going to change back to white. Touch it, it's yellow. Touch it, it's white. And that's a simple way to create a switch that you could do at the game level. You could put this at the game level and say you have a button that is going to be play when play starts, or any other kind of execution that you want to happen. You can just have a single button, and this simple amount of code, instead of having a bunch of different true and false stuff, and it makes a really easy, simple switch. It's very condensed. It optimizes your code. Anytime you can slim down your code, it's going to make your game performance better. You can find me on the forums under the name Lost Oasis Games. This is Dave, the Guru. I'll see you in the next video.